on the day of the Charlie Hebdo attacks, I did a cartoon which ended up on the front page of the Independent. And again, I can't claim any credit for that either, because that was the editor's decision. And, you know, I think the good thing was it was the only editor who saw that the way you respond to a story about cartoonists being killed for what they draw is with a cartoon. And, you know, it became the whole of the front page. Yeah. But again, you know, nothing to do with me, so I can't tell you anything about that either. What can I tell you? Well, the cartoon, in case you haven't seen it, is on page 55 of the book, but we don't seem to have copies of the book anywhere either. Right, okay, right, well, so hopefully everybody knows what it looks like. All I can tell you is there's no great story behind it, there's no great period of gestation, there was no eureka light bulb moment. The news came in about the attacks in Paris. And I think, like everybody, my first response was I was angry, I was frustrated, and I thought, you know, I just want to shout and swear. And all I did was to sort of draw that. It was an absolute initial reaction to this sort of barbaric, murderous act. And what I drew was a big, shouty, sweary sort of visual thing, and it was a gesture. It literally was a gesture. It was that, you know, which is what I felt. So, you know, it wasn't a subtle, witty cartoon that we could laugh over for ages. It was just a response. And lots of other people responded in very different ways. And I noticed, sort of maybe the day after, looking at the other cartoons that came in on the day and the next few days, a lot of them concentrated on pens and pencils as weapons. And I thought, well, actually, this is the point here. It tells you something about why the Charlie Hebdo office was attacked. You know, forget the sort of, you know, spurious nonsense about the sort of prescribed act of drawing the profit. What this is really about is that cartoons are a weapon, and a very powerful weapon, and they scare these people. They scare these murderous, you know, Islamists. What they can't stand is ridicule. They can't stand people taking the piss. You know, they don't do satire, and cartoons have the potential to be the most powerful, most visceral form of satire. I think also, you know, a lot of us realise, you know, this was an attempt to silence cartoonists. And a lot of us here who are cartoonists will probably have had sort of people try and silence us in the past. You know, we've experienced it in a much milder form. You know, quite a few years ago, I had a cartoon I drew of Ariel Sharon that caused an enormous shitstorm. And, you know, I got a sort of bucket loads of hate mail and death threats. And, you know, at first you're a little bit alarmed at this. And then you realise that these death threats are coming from sort of, you know, the usual suspect crazy Americans, you know, and it's all just coming down the line of the internet, you know, and this sort of trolling isn't really anything to be very frightened of, you know. It's just bloody annoying when it clogs up your email and nothing else will work. But, you know, it's nothing compared to what went on in Paris. But what I did learn from it was that in trying to silence cartoonists, what these people always do is disseminate the cartoon to a much wider audience. So they lose. They lose every time because more people see the cartoon. You know, there were a lot of banalities about the Je suis Charlie sort of phenomenon. But what it really was about, I guess, was more people did become involved with cartoons. More people did look at political cartoons, discuss political cartoons. So that's the thing, you know. Trying to silence cartoonists doesn't work. It just makes us more visible. It just boosts our voice. And hopefully that's what this book is going to do as well. And there was just one thing. When I looked this morning on this CrowdShed website to find this place, there was a little link to a Google Maps. And when you zoom in on it, I was looking to see, it didn't actually show CrowdShed, but next door at number 20, it showed something called the ISIS Gallery. So that had me bloody worried for a minute or two. I thought, hang on, have these guys actually finally got it? Have they sussed the power of the visual medium? You know, but when I turned up and walked past tonight, it's gone. So whatever the ISIS gallery was, I'm going to chalk that up as another hit for political cartooning.